You're watching Fugitive Red-Eye, and welcome to another countdown video. This isn't actually a top 5, it's more of an OVA starter pack. As you guys know if you've been watching me for a while, OVAs are my favorite type of anime. OVA stands for Original Video Animation. It is also sometimes abbreviated as OAV rather than OVA, but the terms mean the same thing. So today, I wanted to pick 5 OVAs that I think everyone should see. I've been wanting to make this list for a while, and the rules are quite simple. I have to have obviously seen them if I'm going to suggest everyone has seen them, and it has to be things that I think define what makes OVAs so great. There's plenty of OVAs I still haven't seen, so I'll probably do a volume 2 to this at some point. For instance, I haven't seen Angel Cop. I bet you that would probably be on here had I seen it. And keep in mind that this is not in order, per se. I'm gonna kind of organize it thematically in how I feel like I want to order it, but it's not necessarily definitive in the order either. It's just 5 OVAs I think everyone should see. So to start off our video, we have Violence Jack, especially Evil Town. If you're only going to watch one episode of Violence Jack, watch Evil Town. It's the one that defines what makes Violence Jack great. Obviously, the manga to Violence Jack is far longer, and I've read it, and I own it in its entirety in Japanese, but I've also watched the OVAs many, many times. It's actually what got me into Go Nagai in the first place. Violence Jack is obviously extreme. It's got plenty of, gore. It's got rape in it, it's got cannibalism, but it's a really cool post-apocalyptic anime. Evil Town, I think, is by far the best episode. However, both of the other episodes are still great. The most boring episode, I would say, is Harem Bomber, also known as Harlem Bomber, also known as Slum King, which is technically the first episode, but was released 3rd in the US. Evil Town is the 2nd episode, but it was released 1st in the US. Evil Town is also known as Helltown. But Evil Town adapts the 5th volume of the manga, at least in the collected editions that I have, which are the ones that are like double length, where there's 18 volumes rather than 31. People often mischaracterize Violence Jack by saying it's called Violence Jack because he likes violence and carries a jackknife, but that's a gross oversimplification. Violence is drawn to him like a magnet, right? Like, violence is drawn to him and he is drawn to it. I've done reviews of Violence Jack on the channel. You guys know my opinion on it. I fucking love Violence Jack. It's a good way to kind of dip your toes in the extreme and see what OVAs have to offer. It is borderline hentai. In fact, I don't know how it's not classified as one in some scenes, but especially Evil Town. I would recommend checking out all 3, but at the very least, Evil Town is absolutely included on this list. Next up, we have Mad Bull 34. Mad Bull 34 is a perfect example of why OVAs can sometimes work better when they're dubbed. OVA dubs were quite a special thing when they were done by a little company known as Manga Entertainment. Mad Bull 34, I'm only including the 1st episode on this list because I feel like each episode the series gets progressively worse. That said, I do like the whole series and it is fun to watch, but the only one I'm saying everyone should watch is the 1st episode. The 1st episode is fucking great. It's kind of like the movie Training Day, at least at the start of it is. Mad Bull 34 is a little bit different than Training Day in that it doesn't turn out to be bad and, you know, it doesn't have Sleepy being like an evil character, but he does do a lot of unethical and questionable things throughout the runtime of the 1st episode in particular. Basically, it's about a straight-edge cop teaming up with a loose cannon who goes by his own rules. It's very clearly inspired and an homage and parody of American cop movies of the 70s and 80s. It has references to things like Dirty Harry and all sorts of other stuff in there. It's got a good amount of violence in it, not a ton of gore. There is some gore in the 1st episode, which again is another reason I'm recommending the 1st episode primarily, because I feel like it actually gets tamer with each subsequent episode. Episode 2 does still have some pretty great moments, as does Episode 3. Episode 4, I enjoy for what it is, but it's easily the worst, because they tried to make it serious, and they just kind of missed the mark, and the ending is fucking retarded. The 1st episode is amazing. The 1st episode is basically perfect. It emphasizes everything that makes OVAs and old OVA dubs great. And as with Violence Jack, I have also reviewed it on the channel. In fact, I think I've reviewed all of these on the channel already, with the exception of one of them. And speaking of the one I haven't reviewed, we have Goo Cyber. Now, Goo Cyber is an OVA that I have been meaning to review, but I need to rewatch it, because admittedly, it has been a couple years, at the very least, since I've seen it. But Goo Cyber is another amazing OVA, it's iconic, and it does a good job at, again, showcasing what makes OVAs the superior way to watch anime. Now, Goo Cyber I have only seen subbed, I have no idea how the dub is. With Violence Jack, I would say you could watch it subbed or dubbed and get pretty much the same effect. The dub does add in some sprinkles of fun, whereas Mad Bull 34 I exclusively watch dubbed. Goo Cyber I've only seen subbed, and that's not because I have anything against watching it dubbed, I just haven't got around to watching it dubbed yet. Because as you guys know, with like modern anime in particular, I'm much more of a sub guy, but I do like dubs when it comes to old OVAs, especially when they're dubbed by Manga Entertainment. But that being said, the dub is not a factor in my analysis of Goo Cyber. Goo Cyber is about a girl, well, actually two girls, twins, that have this, like, experiment done on them to, like, modify their DNA with, like, cybernetic stuff. All the details aren't exactly the clearest in my brain right now since it's been such a long time since I've seen it, but basically they merge together and become one, and they become this, like, really powerful being called Goo Cyber. The first couple episodes introduce that. It eventually goes full-on post-apocalyptic. There's this episode that takes place on a boat. It's pretty violent. It actually has kids get fucking gunned down by a machine gun in one of the episodes. It doesn't shy away from it. It's nowhere near as extreme as, say, Violence Jack, but it definitely gets the job done, and it's absolutely an OVA everybody should see. Alright, next up we have Yuki Doji, which I have done quite a few videos on the channel. And Yuki Doji is a hentai. As you guys know, it is considered the first tentacle hentai. Wikipedia has a ton of misinformation about it, claiming there's only one tentacle scene in the original series. Also claiming that there's no tentacle scenes in the manga, which isn't true. Yuki Doji has 5 arcs. Now, there are also various cuts of these arcs. For instance, there's the Perfect Collection, which has the first 2 arcs uncut. Then there's the movie editions that are trimmed down to be movie length. And there's also shorter versions, and there's the Australian versions, which are fucking butchered. And also, in the UK, you can't watch the first 2 episodes of the 4th arc, Yuki Doji 4. At the very least, what I'm recommending here is at least Yuki Doji 1 and 2. And yes, I said 1 and 2. I would recommend the whole thing, but at the very least, 1 and 2. 2 is my personal favorite. A lot of people would only watch 1 and say that 1 is the only one worth watching. 2 is easily my favorite. Yuki Doji is an anime about a demonic entity called the Overfiend that's supposed to rise every 3,000 years and reunite the 3 realms. There's other demonic entities that are important to the plot. There's things like the Mad Regent, also known as the Mad King, also known as Kyo-O, also known as the Lord of Chaos. There are various translation differences based on the dub and sub. In fact, each arc has different things that they say because each arc was dubbed differently with a different cast. There are some actors that carry over, but there are always differences in them. At least the first 2 arcs were dubbed by Manga Entertainment, and the first one is fucking great. The dub on the first arc is fucking hilarious. I have watched Yuki Doji 1 and 2, both subbed and dubbed multiple times. I have only seen 3 and 4 dubbed because the DVDs, in their infinite wisdom, chose to include the Japanese audio track, but no fucking subtitles. The 5th arc has never been released outside of Japan and Germany. That's the only places I've ever seen any release of it. I do actually own a Japanese laserdisc of it, and I also have a backup with subtitles. But I do actually own it officially on laserdisc as well. Like I said, my favorite arc is the 2nd arc. The 4th arc is my least favorite. Ranking the arcs, which I've done in a separate video. 2 is my favorite, then 1, then 5, then 3, then 4. If we're just ranking the original arcs. Yuki Doji is also one of those animes that is vastly superior to its source material because it expands on the manga and is a much longer and more cohesive story. Obviously, being a hentai, there are hentai things about it. But if you can bring it in yourself to look past that, it is easily one of the greatest OVAs of all time, and it is absolutely one everyone should see because it is super monumental in anime. It is part of what popularized anime in the West. People will try to say that, like, Yuki Doji is, like, bad and stuff like that because they're fucking stupid. But I remember Phantom Strider did a video on it talking about how awful it allegedly was. But then he gives Akira credit for how it popularized anime in the West, which, yes, Akira is super important for popularizing anime over here. And in case you're wondering, Akira will not be on here because it was a theatrical film. However, if it was an OVA, it would absolutely be on here. Maybe I'll do one with anime movies, too, or maybe I'll just do a top 10 anime movies. We'll see. But the point is, Yuki Doji's influence on anime in the West and popularizing it here is comparable to Akira. Alright, now, for the number 1 OVA I think everyone should see, and this should surprise absolutely no one that I put it on here, and that's the Devilman OVAs, particularly episodes 1 and 2. Ammon Apocalypse of Devilman is also great. If you're not familiar with the source material, it'll confuse the hell out of you, because it skips to way further ahead in the story and is based on a spin-off manga with an alternate ending. Nevertheless, Ammon is still good, but I'm primarily talking about the 2 episodes, being The Birth and the Demon Bird Siren. This is one that I recommend watching subbed first and then dubbed. It is really great to experience it both ways, because subbed you get the atmosphere and the horror, whereas dubbed you get manga entertainment in all its glory. So absolutely Devilman is on here. I don't think anyone should be surprised by this. It was super influential over here as well in bringing anime over to the West. Rob Zombie was really into it, which is why he wrote that song Supercharger Heaven, and also used clips of the OVA when he performed it live. The Devilman OVAs adapt the first 2 volumes of the Devilman manga and are easily the most accurate and best adaptation of those volumes. Unfortunately, they don't adapt the full story. You get a little bit of the ending if you watch Ammon Apocalypse of Devilman, but again, there are quite a few differences as well. I have obviously also reviewed these on the channel as well, but the Devilman OVAs are fucking peak anime. They're easily my favorite OVAs, easily my favorite anime. I fucking love the Devilman OVAs. And if you haven't seen them, you are really fucking missing out. Don't listen to fucking weenies like Bennett the Sage, who are fucking retarded about it, and just give it a try. OVAs are the shit. This is anime. OVAs are peak anime. I think that modern anime is pussy shit, whereas OVAs did whatever the fuck they wanted because they didn't have to worry about broadcast standards because they were released directly to VHS. But yeah, that's 5 OVAs I think everyone should see. Pretty much a small summary of each of them. I have done in-depth reviews on all of them except Goo Cyber, which I plan to do in the future. But I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if there's any important ones you think I missed. Like I said, I think Angel Cop would be on here had I seen it, but I have not as of yet. But I'll probably do a Volume 2, so any ideas you guys can give me in the comments for a Volume 2, I will look into. If it's ones I've seen and I agree with, absolutely. If I haven't seen it, I'll check it out, and then we'll see. But at the end of the day, this has been Fugitive Red Eye. Have a good one. Toodles!